Welcome. We're finally going to do the video. I'm going to try and not slap my leg here. When I'm sitting here, I tend to slap my leg. But we're going to finally do the video where I talk about some of the tips and tricks to be able to get into or continue cutting opal and being into opal without being taken advantage of, without having to spend tons of money to be able to find something of value or produce something of value. Now, this video is going to assume a couple of things. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with free forms and Dremel carvings, free forms, and whatnot, but most of us probably, if you closed your eyes and imagined what would be your dream opal you'd love to have, most of us would probably be like a black opal from Lightning Ridge, you know, 10 carats, something ridiculously expensive. But that's probably not going to happen for most of us. Most of us have a budget in life and have to try and do things in a way to save money. Now, I'm assuming that most people are going to be like me and they're going to want to cut things like these, for example. These are all opals that I've cut in the last week or two. Now you'll notice a couple of these things. This one right here didn't turn into a gem. Didn't turn into a standard cut. That one didn't. They're beautiful in their own right, but I would say most of us, that's not what we would like to have, and that's not what we're going for. And so this video would be like, how do I get material like this or better and not be taken advantage of, not lose a bunch of money, not end up with just a pile of garbage at the end. I really like that one. That's my Lambina. My one and only one that turned out. One other word before I kind of start here. Any of you that came from my other channel know that all I try to do is put out videos that I think would be entertaining or informative. I don't do production value. I don't do, bunch of hoopla or anything like that. I just try to do stuff that I would find value with, that is entertaining or informative in some way. I don't ever put out videos just because I feel like I have to put out videos. If I don't have something I think is interesting, there may be weeks when I post nothing. Right now, I'm cutting opal almost every day, so almost every day I'm putting out a video. Now, let me show you something here. This is opals from dozens of different places. Trying to find sources to be able to get opal, to be able to start cutting, to be able to start learning. I tried every place I could think of, any place that had opal that wasn't like thousands of dollars to get some. I got some, and I'm finding that there's a lot of ways to be either taken advantage of or outright swindled or just end up with something that isn't what you think it is. So I've got 6 rules. I think it's 6. And then I've got 2 tips, specifically 2 places where you can go that I found is a fun and a good and a safe-ish place to buy opal. Now, as you've seen from the videos I've just put out, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees that you're going to pay X amount of dollars and end up with X amount of value at the end of it. You can spend thousands of dollars on a single piece of rough and end up with sand, or you can spend $50 on a piece and end up with a $5,000 gem. Those are both scenarios that can happen. But in general, if we want to cut a nice, maybe not a calibrated stone, but at least a standard, an oval, a round, a Cushing cut, a teardrop, something like that, we need to have certain things. We need to have color. We want to have, a beautiful play of color. We want to have maybe more than one color. Maybe we want to have something over a carat. I tend to try and shoot for stones over a carat. You start getting down into pointers, especially under half a carat. They're not fun. They don't have the surface area to really pop or show anything off unless you lean over and squint. So I'm usually looking, if I'm trying to buy something, I'm trying to get something that's going to cut a stone over 1 carat. So let's start. Okay, so here's my first tip. No order of importance or anything, but I know that I just said that we would all like to have a black opal from Lightning Ridge. My first tip is don't buy Lightning Ridge material, especially when you're starting. Lightning Ridge is the most sought after and the most expensive material out there. For that reason, when it gets mined, this happens at every single mining area, but when it gets mined, the miner probably picks his favorite few pieces out of there. Then there's a buyer, and he'll pick his favorite few pieces out of there. That buyer will buy it. He'll probably wholesale it on to other buyers in other areas in larger lots. And then what you're left with is some of the middle and lower grade stuff. Somebody will buy those parcels. They'll pick the ice out of it. They'll pick the best stuff out of it. They'll rub a few. And by the time you get down to the lower cost, budget friendly Lightning Ridge parcels, you're looking at mostly you're looking at garbage, and there's a lot of it out there, and Lightning Ridge is tricky if you don't know it, and it can be deceiving because you can have a wink of color in something and you're going to think it's going to be great, and at that level the people that have it in their hands don't pass it on and move it along and sell it to you at $1 or two or three or five carat. If it's got value, they know, they're seeing it, they're looking at it. So I would say don't buy Lightning Ridge unless you can hold it, see it in your hands, or you have somebody that you know and trust. But to start out with, that's a good way to end up with a pile of garbage and a pile of sand and spend a lot more money than you would have to get something much better from a cheaper area. So first of all, don't start out in Lightning Ridge. Start out with, I would say, if you want a tip, start out with Cooper Pedy. It's less expensive. $2 to $10 a carat will get you cuttable, usable stones, and you can see it's very readable. Cooper Pedy's a lot easier. I was talking to somebody about some Lightning Ridge today, and he said there's no such thing as cutters with Lightning Ridge. Well, the reason why I said that is because compared to Cooper and some, Mativi, Lambina, some other places, you can literally see. I mean, some of it you can see. This is going to cut something, or this is probably not going to cut something. Lightning Ridge is trickier because of the knobbies. The seam opal is a little bit easier, but the knobbies, they can show nothing, or they can show a wink of something, and you don't know unless you know them really well and can handle them. So I would say if you want to find a field to just get some value where you're going to be able to get something that you would wear, get some Cooper Pedy. Okay, number two. This is going to go against what a lot of you are going to be told. Don't buy beginner parcels. Don't do it. Even if you've never cut anything before, get something that's not terribly expensive. If you spent, say, $5 or $10, or if you spent $50 to $100 on a parcel of 3, 5, maybe 10 cuttable pieces of rough opal, you're already going to have in that some that are probably not going to turn out, or parts of them that are obviously not going to turn out. You can't practice cutting opal with garbage. You can't practice. The whole purpose of cutting an opal is to be able to figure out how to get that color bar, the color on the stone, to be able to pop, to be able to not cut through it, to be able to not ruin the stone, to be able to face it in the right direction. You can't do that if you're cutting stones that have no color in them. So I mean, get one piece. If you've never felt a stone or held it in your hands or turned it and twisted it and rubbed it on a wheel or on sandpaper or with a Dremel that you've ever done, fine. You're probably gonna get, if you buy a parcel with tin in it, you can pick one out that's garbage that would be, you're not hurting anything if you screw it up. And then after that, pick the easiest one, straight color bar. You can clean off the edges so you can follow that color bar all the way around. Start going from the top down. When you start getting close to the color bar, Slow down, take your time. That's how you learn. You don't learn how to cut good opals by cutting garbage with no value and no color. Number two, don't buy beginner parcels. Number three is going to go right along with number two. Don't buy inlay, don't buy chips, don't buy doublet material when you're just starting. I promise you, you're going to end up with inlay chips and thin pieces for doublets, and you're gonna have all the chips and inlay that you want when you start cutting opal. You're gonna have more than you want. That's why people are selling it cheap, and that you can get gobs of it for not very much. Is that it already produces itself. If you want to make some inlaid rings or whatever, some mosaics or something like that, you're going to generate small pieces that you couldn't make anything out of. You're going to have more of that than you probably want. Unless your beginning goal is to just do inlay or mosaic, don't buy inlay or chips or pieces. You're going to generate that while you are trying to cut opal. It's just a natural part of the process. That's why it's cheap. That's why you can buy it. All right. Number four, I'm going to tell you, avoid buying from eBay and avoid buying from Etsy. It's not that there's not good opal there, and it's not that there's not probably some good sellers there. There might be. I didn't find any. But there are a lot of people selling garbage and knowingly selling garbage, and they know what you are looking for, and they know how to position things in a way to where you think you're getting what you're looking for, and you're going to get garbage more often than not because they have they rarely put videos, and they rarely most of the people selling on there are wholesaling the bottom end of whatever market, whether it's the Ethiopian market or the Australian market or wherever. They're just looking for people that are ignorant and don't have contacts and don't have knowledge to sell most of their stuff. That's not all of them. This is not a blanket indictment. I'm just telling you that you go buy 10 things off of eBay or Etsy just trying to pick something up with value that you don't want to spend a lot of money on. You're probably 9 times out of 10 going to get something that is valueless, has no value. Okay, now that being said, auctions are and can be a very good way to buy rough opal. A couple of tips on auctions. Don't buy things that don't have video. It's very easy to manipulate a single picture. It's not impossible to manipulate video, but it's much more difficult and you have a better chance. With along those lines, don't buy auctions that are only in a bottle or magnified in some way unless you can also see them outside, or unless you are aware that it's never going to look better than what it is in that bottle. It's going to look 20 to 50% larger in the bottle than it actually is. And a real good way of getting a bottle of sand or a bag, because when you get it, it's no longer in a bag. I mean, I bought a couple of these to test them. Oh, I got one here I can show you. Hold on. There you go. Those were in bottles. They looked like very cuttable, nice, large stones in the bottles. This is a bag of gravel. What they do, in this one right here, they'll put a couple of chips in there, a couple of probably crystal chips, so that when they're spinning that bottle, it's got a wink of color here and a wink of color there, and you're like, oh, bingo, there's my rough opal right there. And all of the pieces that are big enough to cut have no color. All the color is on stuff that, unless you do inlay or even doublets, there's no value here. There's nothing here that's cuttable or they're going to get you a gem that's usable. Don't buy them. Final tip. Don't go super cheap. You want to know the very best way to waste a lot of money on opal is to spend $20 20 times trying to get something of value. Chances are you're going to end up with nothing. But if you saved $100, if you're on a very tight budget and you saved $100, 50 will get you some of the parcels out there that are decent and have cuttable stuff. But if you had $100 or $200, If you could save that much, you actually would be able to get something that probably would produce something that would be worth more than the money that you invested. If you're trying to buy stuff 5, 10, $20 at a time, buying single pieces in opal auctions and stuff like that, chances are you're not going to get value there. Trust me, I bought a bunch of them, and 9.95% of them out of 10, you're buying garbage. You're better off to just spend a little bit more on fewer things, and you'll get something of value most of the time. All right, so that's good enough for now. Now, I know some of you are going to disagree with me, and I know that situationally some of this stuff isn't going to be correct because you can always point out to the exceptions. But I'm telling you that if you will, when you start, set a budget. Don't go crazy, but come up for your rough opal. Come up with $50 or $100, and then there are places you can go to get a few pieces that you can start cutting with that. I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you three. I'm going to give you three places where you can go right now to get value. Um, the first one would be Tom at Os Opals. I don't know that he has anything in that lower end. Typically, his packages are going to start in probably the $150 to $200 range, but you're going to get something that probably, if you got 10 stones, you're going to probably end up with one or two really nice ones, three or four that cut decent stuff, and then some that worked out. That's the nature of that price point of stuff, but you're not going to end up with a bag of gravel like this one. And then the other two places are Facebook auctions and Facebook uh, pages that specialize in opal. And I'm going to give you two of them. There's several. There's some really there's ones that are not great out there, and there's ones that don't have a lot of activity, and there's the ones that have people that are committing fraud. You can see all that stuff. But these are two places that I found that are reliable, and I'm going to share you with them right here. Okay, here's the first tip I'm going to leave you of a specific place to go for opal that should give you value for what you pay. I'm going to give you two on Facebook that I have personally bought from. First one, on Australian Opal Auctions. There's several similar to that, but Australia Opal Auctions, and then specifically Mativi Opal Auctions. So this is, I just picked one. She does a lot of she does 5 auctions every day. They have a low reserve. They have a good chance of, she has very good quality for what you're getting. She does some that are cutters. Those are the ones you want to look for. She does some small stones inlay and that stuff. But usually every day there's at least one or two auctions with one or two or three or sometimes 5 or 6 stones about this size. They usually go out for very reasonable, usually less than $100, but sometimes 50 or 60 depending on what's in them, how big they are. But I've bought from her multiple times. And here's the good thing. I thought, you know what? I reached out to her and I said, hey, if I had a budget of, say, X amount of dollars. So, again, these are not going to be these like $10, $15, $20 buys. But if you have $200 to $500 or more, but if you had $200, $300 American, now she's in Australia, so downside is you got to wait a few weeks to get your stuff, but the upside is American to Australian dollars, it's about a third off. So if it's a $300 auction that you win Australian, in American money, it's about $200. So if you're bidding on these in Australian dollars and it goes out for $100, you're actually only going to pay less than $100 with shipping. So basically, I kind of figured that on the lower end ones, the exchange rate saves me the shipping. But if you'll reach out to her and say, hey, I have a budget of $300 US, I would like to see a parcel in the 5 to 8 carat range of cutters. Can you put something together for me? And you know, she's going to put together something, and I've done this several times now. And then you say, well, you know, stones 2 and 3, like they look a little bit thin, or is there something else that we can swap those out? And she'll send you the new package put up. And once you like every stone that's in the package and you agree on the price, boom, you got it coming. That way, she does a very good video. It shows she has very good quality stuff. And when you reach out to her personally, you actually get access to a higher grade of stuff that she's not putting on these auctions. So just a little tip there. All right, the next one is also on Facebook, but it's Facebook Live auctions. I really like these. I watched a few of them. I only bought from one this last night to kind of see how the process went and everything. And the good news is they're very good at showing you. Most of them are very good at, like, they'll pick up a specific piece and talk about it, its pros and cons, while the auction is going on. Now, this one that I'm going to show you, this is not cheap stuff. This is Lightning Ridge Mulga, you know, the top end stuff, but you can get in here and get some very good value. And also, you know, he'll pick up a piece and tell you, this has got some sand over here, this color bar thins out, or this is awesome, this is going to cut you a $5,000 gem. It's fascinating to watch the discussion and see what prices are going for. People that know opals are buying here, and there's also, so what I did is, after watching for a while, I realized that I didn't know anything about the Mulga field. So again, I just typed into the chat bar, hey, I have this budget. Do you got something that I might like? And he showed me two single individual stones that were at or above my budget. And I was like, I don't think I want to gamble everything on one. So I said, what do you got for a parcel? And he pulled out a jar and he said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you this one for your price. And so I've got that one coming. But he absolutely, you know, basically after talking with him for just a little bit, he just hurried up and had something right there that worked for me, that was in my budget, and then we got it coming. So that this one will be, and these that I've watched, but I particularly liked New Breed Opals. If I watched right here, so if I watched, I think this is the live that I bought from. See if I can find the specific spot where I bought, and I can show you how that went.
3 mil mark, so it leaves you enough room to cut stones. I've made sure I put stones in there thick enough to cut. Too easy, mate. No worries, William. I shall find you one right now, bud.
So that's him talking to me. I just said, hey, find me one. He finds this one from me. Keep in mind, this is Lightning Ridge material.
This one is Mulga, William.
And I immediately said, sold.
And because it's your first time on, I'll do it for $350, mate.
$350 Australian.
That one is going to cut a little beauty. That one's semi-rubbed already. You know what you're going to get, white opal Mulga. Beautiful greens. A few blues. I'll do it for William for $350. It's his first time on. All yours, Will. Cheers, mate.
Cool. Those are two places I found that are not, you know, they're not dirt cheap. They're not cheap, but you have, it's a fun opportunity. They sit there and talk about every piece and every parcel, and people that know what they're talking about talk about it. You learn a lot, and you can have a pretty good chance of getting something that's going to be value and be what you want it to be. So there's two places to go to get high quality opals. If this was helpful, like and subscribe.